Hey!
Tic-tac, it's time to rock.
Will you stop that, honestly? The day we have a hall full of people, will be the day I run.
Oh, well, you got to start somewhere.
That's
Happy
funny.
Fen
That's
Sunday.
Happy Fen
Happy Fen
Sunday.
Sunday. So the channel has decided now that we're going to rename Sunday Fen Sunday. Hence
Sunday.
the fenders.
I don't think I've got any fenders out of my children. What have I got? No. I've got no fenders out at all. Oh dear. I've got one that looks like a fender though.
Okay.
But I've got my Chapman does look like a fender, but it isn't one. Looks like a telly, but isn't.
Happy Fen Sunday,
Happy
Rock
Fen
Professor.
Sunday. Indeed.
Hey, why would you need a Gibbs Sunday or a Wolfgang Wednesday or a Music Man Monday
or
when you got a
Straturday when you can have a Fen Sunday?
Oh,
you and I will never get a job in advertising on the basis of that, will we? Oh dear.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've got some rap bags here in the chat, and the Rock Professor is going to do a shout out to you. But if you guys are perplexed and scratching your heads and wondering what's going on here, why are these two old dudes on here?
Hey.
And this hot young guy that's normally, around here somewhere.
Yes, where is Dr. Clickbait anyway? Up in the wilds of Queensland, mate. Up in the wilds of Queensland, wrestling a croc.
He's doing, as the Rock Professor and I were saying in the green room, he's earning his crust. He's doing what Brad loves to do. He's playing in his Rewind 80s band. We're going to have him here next week, so we promise that we'll give you a full report. We'll have pics and everything, and he can fill everybody in with what he's been up to. But I hope, Simon, that, some of those contract writers, I really hope that they manage to, provide Brad with everything that he requires.
Well, I mean, completely. I hope it. I mean, considering these theatre, did you see the pictures of the theatre he's playing? Quite something. Proper seats. Tiered.
Yeah.
Balconies and stuff.
Yeah, cucumber sandwiches.
Boxes.
And Earl Grey tea. I'm hoping he's getting all those for his contract writers.
Yeah, hope so. Yeah, and M&Ms without the brown ones, of course.
We had a great show this morning, ladies and gentlemen. We had a young guy that we've been following for a while, a young guy called Ricky Dover Jr. If you guys haven't checked it out, please go and check it out. He was with me for about an hour and a half. It was a great interview. He gave us some in-depth into what made Ricky tick. Simon, we spoke about gear. We had some gear on there as well. So everything that you could imagine that a guitar and rock and roll show should be about, we pretty much nailed it with him.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, it was a great show, and it was he's interesting, and he's got fantastic amount of gear, all those high tone amps and stuff, and clearly some association with high tone because he's on their webpage playing when I went to it. I thought to myself, wait a minute, that's him, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
we're going to attach his
really
those links to this video as well, because like we've always said to you guys here watching and anyone on the replay, Simon and I and Brad, we're about helping people, and we're going to do the best that we can to make anything work and viable for anybody that's associated with the channel. And he's a young guy, so the Rock Professor and I have got planned for us here in New Zealand. It's Saturday, so that'll be the 6th, which will be the 5th. So it'll be a day after the album Tuck and the Restless Hearts have dropped their album. Ballad of a Misspent Youth. So Simon and I are going to get on here. We're going to spend a couple of hours. We're going to get some people on, and we're going to talk about the album, show some videos. What do you reckon, Simon?
Yeah, 5th for you, 4th for me. 9
Yeah.
o'clock in the evening on the 4th for me. So a bit behind for you guys in the US. You've got 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the East Coast.
Yeah,
So,
should be good.
Yeah, should be good. Yeah, yes. Maybe we can. Maybe we could play something. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. If we play something, at least we can do it live, and it depends, because if they claim copyright and we can still play the videos and keep the show up, that'll be great. If and it's obviously got nothing to do with the band, it goes back to the publishing company and the recording company, and if they want to claim complete copyright, well, the show's going to be pretty much useless for people watching it on a replay, because it means that we'll have to probably blank out big chunks of silence. But we're going to do it at least for the live vibe, Simon.
And absolutely, yeah. So, and that'd be fun. I think that'd be great to do that. It'd be really good. So, yeah.
We've got a couple of other things to talk about in the intro too, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to talk about 2 things, and the Rock Professor is going to mention something and do a shout out. We want to also ask you guys to continue, please, helping our channel by sharing our videos on your social media links. We really, really appreciate that. If you're watching on a replay and you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do. We'll subscribe back to every subscription to us. And also go and have a look at our friends. Simon and I and Brad are really, really passionate about you guys supporting our friends on our channels page. If you can take a moment and go and do that and subscribe to them, it won't cost you anything. Just 30 seconds to go and subscribe to everybody. But it helps the channel. It helps that channel get up to whatever they want. You guys helped us, and we want to make sure that those channels get helped. We also want to do a shout out to Jeff and Robert, Bob, for their wonderful signing event that they had, and we look forward, Simon, to them coming on, because they said that they were going to do a debrief with us.
Yes, we've got to get them organised.
Yeah, we'll get them on. We'll get them on, and we'll spend a bit of time talking to them about it. So, talking about Peter Green, ladies and gentlemen, Peter Green's birthday was yesterday. He would have been, I think I worked it out, Simon, he would have been 74 years old.
Wow. Yeah. Hold on, I'm still listening.
So we just, some people say this, and I do. Happy heavenly birthday, Peter Green, and thank you for everything, because our channel exists because of the music and the legacy that you left us. So
yes, absolutely. One of the cornerstones of what we do here, isn't it? Is that?
Yep.
I'm just looking for something. Sorry, I'm just looking for something to prompt me. Well, it's not going to happen. Well, we'll see.
You keep looking.
I'll come.
We want to do a shout out to our co-host who's not here, Brad. If you are watching, bro, give us a yell in the chat. I know you will. If you watch back on our replay, we promise we'll be good.
Yes, indeed. Brad from up country. Right. Still there?
Yep. TikTok, time to rock.
Cool. Now, the other thing we need to talk about is the passing of the great Jerry Lee Lewis, who died this week, aged 87. One of the founding pillars of rock and roll in the US. This is what I have of his. This is if you don't know this record, go and listen to it. It's an incendiary performance of Jerry Lee. Amazing performance. Sorry, I just wanted to get it out of the cupboard, which I've got behind me. So yeah, I mean, there he is. Yes, yes, one of the great legends of rock and roll. I think founding fathers.
Awesome.
And yeah, so we. But good age, 87, same age as my mum. There we are. It's I've never saw him. Keith did. I'll say hi to the guys in the chat because there's quite a lot of people in the chat today. From Mexico, Nelson. Good morning to Nelson. Morning, Nelson. Holly, Lewis. Morning, Holly. It's, and Greg Zeppelin, Keith Campbell. Thanks for your thoughts, Keith. That's very kind. Ellen, Tom. Good morning, Ellen. Nice to see you. And John ZD351. Morning, John. How you doing? Hope you're good. Who else have we got? Greg Zeppelin. Yes, morning, Gretch. Yeah, lots of things from there. So, morning to everyone. Hope I got everybody. Nice to see you. I hope you're all good.
Awesome. And I just want to do a special little shout out to the sponsors of today's pictures. There they are there. Tea cake, also known as pumpkin cake, there with the David Lee Roth mask on, and the other guy there with the war paint on. I don't know who the hell. Oh, Keith. Apparently that's Keith. Crazy from the eat.
Keith, is that all right? Are you feeling all right? Is everything all right at home, as my daughters would say?
I jumped in their stream today while he was on, and I kept on saying in the comments, do a hula, Keith, get up and do a hula. But he was too shy. He wouldn't. I'm
amazed.
Do a hula, Keith.
Really? Were they blocking you?
Yeah, that's right. Holly. Brad's doing some real work.
Up country. Wrestling them crocodiles.
But we do miss him. We do miss him.
Yeah. We're jealous. He's playing in those lovely theatres. I mean, he put out some pictures of his office today, didn't he? In that lovely theatre he was playing in. Dead jealous by that. Morning, Johnny Heartbreaker. Sorry, John, I missed you there.
Hey,
apologies to
that. So yeah, they had a bit of fun. They had a bit of fun on their show. So go and check them out. And you know, Keith Campbell, handsome man. What a handsome man Keith Campbell is.
Makes a great lion.
Hi, Teresa. So
what
are we here for? What are we
here for? Today we are talking about the mighty, the remixes of Revolver, because Mr. Cook is up country in Queensland doing some gigs. Thank you, John. Yes, that they've just this week released the Giles Martin remixes of a Revolver. Not only the album, but a lot of outtakes, and they've really expanded it out to give you a real flavour of how they developed it, the development of songs you can now get to hear, and actually a bit of chat between the the band as they're doing it and things. And it's been a fascinating insight into the Beatles. I mean, it's kind of like a precursor to Get Back, really. The film, Peter Jackson stuff. It was amazing that those those little tidbits of talking between the band themselves and the versions of the songs as they progress as well. And we'll get into some of those because they are really interesting. show you how the Beatles collaboratively developed things, and then we saw it again in Get Back, sitting around in a circle and developing things through, playing them and mucking about with them, people chucking in ideas.
Yeah, they've basically followed the
It's
same
amazing.
format that they've done with a couple of the other albums that we've mentioned here on the channel as well, without doing full dives. But we have done already the ranking and the dives, if you get what I mean. Abbey Road, Giles remixed Abbey Road, and also the White Album, and also Sergeant Pepper's. And so, obviously, I suspect the plan is to go on all the way up
do
to
Rubber Soul next.
The Beatles. So it'll be interesting to see.
That's an interesting point, isn't it? Clearly, Rubber Soul would be up for for some work. But do you think that the first, like with the Beatles and Help and Hard Day's Night, do you think you get somewhere remixing them as a exercise? Because it's basically played live in the studio, isn't it? There's not much in the way of overdubs. You can clean them up a bit, and I'm sure they have been in the past.
I think that's what they'll do, because it's a business now, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's it's a project. It's something that Giles himself is committed to doing. And it keeps the Beatles relevant. We saw it with Led Zeppelin, didn't we? With Jimmy Page, he went through and did that. With, so yeah.
Yes,
I think they will.
This reminded me of that. This reminded me very much of that. Where you've got incomplete or without vocals tracks, or incomplete stuff where they're working through. Or yes, really interesting insight into that working process that you get with all these things.
Yeah, so I've ordered the album, ladies and gentlemen. My store has the CDs, so I don't have the album here. So watch the channel. When the album comes, I'll do a live unboxing, or I'll do a video of it, the unboxing. So I'll be interested and keen to see what the book has to say, because there's always a little bit of information in there. Whether it's anything new, Simon, we don't know, because
there's quite a booklet, I think, isn't there?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything.
Is there nothing particularly in it that's?
No, I don't think there's anything new as far as new information. But it's part of the package now. If you're going to buy a package, get in the book, and everything is part and parcel of that. Because this album, as we've discussed when we ranked it, there's a lot of good information about this album out there.
Yeah. Oh yes, it's one thing about the Beatles, isn't it? There's been a lot, because they're so great. There's been a lot of documentation, a lot of books written, always, and so there's a lot of information. We were discussing in the group, weren't we? You look into the Beatles Revolver, there's piles of information about them recording, when, what they did, and what they wore, and what they played through, and everything. You go into a band like Juicy Lucy, not so much, if at all. So it's nice to go into something knowing that there's absolutely heaps, masses of information and things like that, and
Yeah, and some of those biographies are really, really important. Like Jeff Emmerich's biography that came out was really, 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 really important as far as detailing that information. And also, Simon, we were lucky too, because George Martin for years told us what he did, didn't he?
Yes, as well. Yeah. And you just know that the Mark Lewisham Volume 2, I don't think quite to get up to Revolver, but that's going to be another fascinating insight into this period, kind of thing. I don't know if it quite gets to. Maybe it does. I think it's good on the cusp. I can't remember whether Revolver will be included in the Volume 2 or not, to be honest. But so that'll be interesting. 66, probably. Yeah. So that'll be a fascinating kind of fascinating insight into the minutiae of those things. It was extraordinary.
Well, if anybody's going to get anything new, ladies and gentlemen, and again, I haven't read the booklet that Simon and I were talking about.
No.
That's available with this reissue. But from the research that I've done, there doesn't seem to be, Simon, anything new. But if anybody's going to give us anything new on the Beatles, it's going to be Mark Lewisham, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. That kind of minutiae and that kind of everyday kind of diary thing is just extraordinary. I think, as a, clearly it's an exercise. We've got to hope that he stays alive to do all 3 volumes of it. It's a be a disaster, wouldn't it, to get halfway through volume 3 and not do it. But I think that'd
Well,
be
yeah.
quite okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, you're right,
Wow.
because we've made reference to that book a couple of times on a couple of shows we've done recently. So that book came out in 2012, Simon. So it's
Yes, it's 10 years ago.
10 years. And about 5 years ago, he was every 3 months he was producing something on social media saying it's coming, it's coming. He's just stopped. He hasn't said anything for about 3 years. So, but he's still alive, Simon.
I know he recently did a show in London that was called, what was it? 60. He basically did 60 facts about the Beatles.
Yes.
Yeah, in 2 minutes each, kind of thing. Little facts, but I don't know what any of them were, but
yeah.
But yes, you can see that it. Thank you, Holly. It's that delve. Every day a new piece of information comes to light. Something is there that you need to go and investigate. See what's the story behind it. I mean, it feels to me like an endless task, especially when you get into the fame years, when they start, making records, getting famous, having Beatlemania and stuff. The amount of information, things that were going on must be astronomical, I would thought.
I think so. I think so. And one report I read, this was about 18 months ago, someone who worked for the publishing company, and this can't be qualified, thought that they heard that the second biography, Simon, was going to be 1,400 pages.
And that is digging into the minutiae, isn't it? Absolutely is, of their everyday lives, every cigarette they smoked, every chip they ate,
Well, the reason why this is important, the second volume, if you guys haven't read the first volume, go and check it out, because we'll always recommend that you should read it.
It's extraordinary.
But the second volume, with all the detail that's going to be included in it, is because they have just hit the big time with
Love Me Do,
with the second volume, with the first album. So, and it's when it's just taking off. So, and I think the thing with Lewisham, Simon, which is really, really interesting, because he is a historian. He's not just necessarily a journalist, ladies and gentlemen. So this is really important, because he understands research methods and the historical method, depending on what historical school he comes from. But what's really important for him is that he needs to incorporate the time, the cultural things that were happening. And Simon and I have spoken about this many times. This is one of the great things that we love doing on this channel, because we like to talk about the cultural times of an album.
Oh no, completely. It's I think especially the stuff in the 60s. There is, to me, clearly a social revolution going on. In that 60s, that the Beatles are one of the main headlines of and both doing it and reflecting it as well. What's going on, that 60s creative explosion, coming out of the sort of rock and roll of the 50s, and the kind of, if you like, going from black and white, certainly in the UK, black and white to colour, really. with Flower Power and the that sort of the young social revolution of the late '60s and things that I think gives all those things a framework that
Yep.
some gives them some weight, really, in a way that maybe things that, say, in the '80s or something like that, they don't have quite the same historical backdrop into which they're creating stuff. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think that that it gives them a creative weight that maybe those things don't have. And
One of the cool
you know
things about Lewisham too, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys didn't know this, is he loves music, loves the Beatles, knows music. But what he did, there's another really, really important Beatles academic, a guy called Walter Everett, who's got 2 volumes, well, 3 books out on the Beatles, but 2 volumes, The Beatles as Musician, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Go and check them out. They're available on Kindle. They're really expensive books, but talk about detail, Simon, the musical chords, the tonalities, the structures, how everything was put into place. So what Lewisham did, Simon, is he went and spent time with Walter Everett to understand the Beatles musically, because he said he thought, as a writer, as a historian, for him to be able to convey the story about the Beatles, he had to understand at least some of the musical concepts that Paul, John, George, and Ringo were doing, Simon.
yeah. And I think that's really important. It is really important to understand, because I think that time we've talked on here before, that the development of we talk about the UK here, and the way that I've talked about it. For instance, a lot of people had pianos in their front rooms, little upright pianos in their front rooms. That was entertainment in a lot of houses. People gathered around the piano and sang musical songs, whatever, pub songs, roll out the barrel or something, or doing the Lambeth Walk, all those things. They're kind of cockney things, but that kind of and that musical stuff goes into, together with the rock and roll stuff, goes into the musical makeup of those bands, like the Beatles particularly, and of course the other band that strikes me is like that is the Kinks as well, very much so, doing that, taking that musical stuff and the rock and roll thing, R&B thing, and mixing it up and making something quite English about it, but with those influences, and you can see things that, go on to Sergeant Pepper's, and you've got those influences like Mr. Kite and things, and which really come into it, and you can see those influences, and they they shine through, and there's stuff on Revolver that definitely has that about it, and things like the Goons, the humor of the time as well, that kind of surrealist humor certainly plays into that Beatles sensibility, and then recording and creating the music of that time, and their extraordinary development. I think it's worth saying that when 3 years before they recorded Revolver, which is they were doing She Loves You, so in 3 years they've gone from She Loves You to Revolver, which I think is an extraordinary development. One, they did about 4 albums. Well, more than that, actually. Hard Day's Night, Help, Rubber Soul. They did like for five or 6 albums with the Beatles. So that's six albums in 3 years. It was quite extraordinary, the creativity and that going, as I said, Andrew, that thing from 3 years from She Loves You to Tomorrow Never Knows, isn't it? Is an extraordinary kind of creative, uh, line that development that is just, I think, almost unequaled, really, isn't it? That sort of development.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment in regards to Keith's comment there. He grew up listening to She Loves You on 45. In this book here, Keith, there's 60 pages by this guy here of a book that's got about 700 pages of why She Loves You is the perfect pop song. and why. And just every so the fact that we're all listening to "She Loves You," there's a reason why that song is so great. And and Simon, this is one of the reasons why I love doing this show with Simon, with you guys here, because we've got this information out there that we can end the show with. We can go and make a cup of tea and spend 3 hours when we should be getting ready for work the next day, reading stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. But this is why I love this stuff, Simon, because it's there, and you're trying to digest it, Simon. You're trying to listen to it. You're trying to do a show. You're listening to what the rock professor's got to say. You're listening to what Holly and Keith and Alan are saying in the chat as well, and it just feeds back into what these Simon, what these academics and experts are saying as well. I love it.
I know. And the extraordinary bit is, as you said, there's a 700-page book on that, and then Mark Newisham's is 900 pages, and other people have written things. The amount of literature written about them is extraordinary and
staggering.
It's staggering, isn't it? And it's not that clearly unpublished by recognized publishing houses, which must see that there is that kind of academic interest, but also there is a broader interest in the Beatles, and all of that stuff that is of interest to not just a minority of pop fans or fans of a particular band and things, which I think is interesting. That the appeal is so broad, and I think that's probably why.
And some of the best shows we've ever done, and the Rock Professor and I were talking about this, ladies and gentlemen, in the chat, some of the best shows, and we've done a lot now. We've done a lot of shows. But some of the best shows we've ever done have been the Beatles shows. We did the Get Back series at the beginning of the year, which just... Simon, we were so excited, weren't we? You and I and Brad, we were just. Yeah. What did we do? 4 shows or 3 shows? It was, it wasn't 2 or 1. It was half. It was a clutch of shows on that. And then we've done, and then Abbey Road was 2
never
shows.
Knowingly undersold, are we? We never knowingly undersold us. Why do 1 when you could do 3?
Revolver was 1 show, but that went for 2. That went for just about 2. And look, am I allowed to say this? Am I allowed to say this live?
No
can
swearing.
I say it? No.
Go on.
No, not. Some of those shows we did were pretty bloody good, mate.
They were all right, weren't they? Shh. Look, bigging ourselves up. Oh, that's not like us, is it? No, I thought they were.
I went back.
They are pretty good.
Yeah.
It's I've watched quite a lot of I watched some stuff about the Revolver releases, stuff like that. That I don't think that myself, maybe fooling myself, but I don't think that what they do is what we do is any way inferior to what they do as a what they do and what they've been doing. They know some great shows about the Revolver stuff.
Yeah. Well, and the Beatles will always be a big part of this show too, and we look forward to doing more and more shows, don't we, Simon? And eventually we're going to have to get together and go through and do these critical Beatles albums, especially song for song, and not necessarily deep dive every track, but I think it would be good for us, probably not this year, but at some stage next year to go through and do this, because how many songs are on the on the full package? 20 odd?
Yeah, at least 20, and all sorts of there's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not what's this not deep diving into every song? Of course we don't. We never don't. That's never going to happen, Mr. Walton. We're always going to be deep diving into the minutiae of, of take four. Of
Yeah,
Tomorrow Never
yeah,
Knows. Oh,
yeah.
because that's
I
what we do. It's
I
it's
got I got
funny.
to tell you though. I got to tell you though, Simon. I do get excited about the Beatles. It's just, we
Oh,
talk. You and I are so lucky here with Brad and everybody in the chat. We get to talk about a lot of bands, Simon, and a lot of
great
acts
bands.
on this
Yeah,
show. We get
yeah,
to talk about shitloads of really, really good
yeah,
bands. Yeah,
yeah.
we're not just talking about one band here.
Yeah,
We're talking
yeah.
about
Lots of
lots
great bands.
lots
Yeah.
and lots of shows. But there's just something giddy for me about the Beatles. There's just something when I yeah.
I what's interesting to me is every periodically because we every week we do a different album and stuff like that, so you're focusing, which is great, and I really enjoy the week of listening to an album, really getting into it and stuff. But there's not a huge amount of space to do a lot of other things. But when you get something like this Revolve and you go back and you re-listen to it, and you go, I say to myself, I mean, you just remind yourself literally of just how brilliant they are. I mean, it's just unbelievable how brilliant they are. I mean, I say on this channel, the Beatles are underrated. And every time I go back and listen to Revolver this week, I'm listening to it in my car and on my stereo. And you just sit back and you go, I can't believe how good this stuff is. Can't believe how much creativity there is. The freedom to create, the way that they did it, what they produced is just still absolutely extraordinary in my books. Never melodically, never bettered by anybody since.
And
Equaled.
arguably,
I'll go equal for sure, but never bettered. And and that the breadth of stuff they did, the depth of the things they did, is just instrumentation wise and all those things. And the arrangements are just fantastic.
and
Always
arguably,
singing.
never bettered in their solo careers.
No, I think that's true, and I think that particularly, and I think the Get Back movie and this have proved that that they, particularly Lennon and McCartney, they needed each other to produce their best stuff, for sure. And I think that possibly less so George Harrison. I would say that George Harrison, because he was a self-contained unit, and we can get into this, but he wrote his own songs and bought them in clearly, but it seems like they were much less messed with by the other Beatles than if we're taking it. The great example on this record is Yellow Submarine, isn't it? Where John Lennon comes in with this little two chords ditty, in the town where I was born, no one cared, no one cared, and from that you get this whole Yellow Submarine, because Paul comes in, puts his input in, changes it, lyrics get changed, the arrangements get changed, the whole kind of story of it, and it's what it does as a song gets changed completely. Ringo sings it, and then it's Yellow Submarine, and but it doesn't start off like that. And I don't think that John, if John had been left to his own devices, it would not have arrived at the finished article from where he from where he from where he started with, which is that little ditty. And I don't know if it's been put out. It's on. I don't know if people have. Yeah, absolutely, Holly. Yes, it's and I think that's extraordinary. And I think that is one of the best examples I can think of where the input of McCartney into that turns it into something completely different. From a very basic kind of simplistic song to something else entirely.
Yeah, again, I just have to echo what Simon is saying there, and that's one of the great things about these remasters or these re-releases, because we saw it and heard it with the other previous releases too. The Usher sessions, I think, with the White Album, Simon. When they were demos, and then going through and then having that
Yeah,
last, the finished song. So, the rock professor's right. Yellow Submarine, the song that we all learnt to sing at primary school when we were all kids, started off, like Simon was saying, just, like this, all songs have to start somewhere, and they get together, they have this collective effort. Obviously, you've got George Martin's influence, Simon, and we've spoken about him at length, and Brad mentioned him on the Get Back sessions as well, when he was involved in it, when he came in. Remember when he came in and he just nailed them down?
Absolutely, yeah. And that extraordinary kind of collaboration thing that, and you can hear it here, can't you? I mean, if you listen to the outtakes of Yellow Submarine, you can hear them, McCartney and Lennon, back and forthing about it, can't you? About
Sure.
doing it, and it's an amazing, as I say, sort of a reinforcement of that creative process that they went through. Kind of, I think sometimes, and we saw it in Get Back, with McCartney very much being the sort of driving force about trying to get things done and things. And I think, that it is clear that he's probably the most driven one in the Beatles. I think, of getting things done, getting things sorted out, trying to make things, inputting his his creative input into, particularly the Lennon stuff. I think
Correct,
in
Keith.
a way that was it. Oh, the Butcher Plate. Oh, was it? Oh, right, yeah.
And it was didn't last long. That cover.
No, it did. No, it didn't.
So I'm going to talk about just one thing in regards to the main songs.
Could I
that have been
do
remixed.
Could I do a bit of background first? Because I wrote down some things that
okay.
that I think are kind of a little bit of a framework for what's going on. So I've talked already. I've said that only 3 years from She Loves You, so She Loves You to this is 3 years, and they were on the road as well. That creative process, extraordinary, including things like Hard Day's Night. Hard Day's Night is one of the first albums where a group wrote everything themselves. And no outside influences, no outside, no cover versions. They wrote 11 or 12 songs, all themselves. Wrote 5 more than, and which is an extraordinary achievement in itself. And one day we'll get to that. I think that this is the first record where their individual personalities come shining through in a way they haven't before. Before this, they were the kind of, if you like, the 4-headed monster in a Beatles suit with a Beatles haircut. The thing that Brian Epstein created for that early pop thing. Whereas, then, if you take the first 3 tracks, Taxman is by George Harrison. So this is the, starting an album with a song by George Harrison rather than Lennon McCartney, I think is really important. I think we should acknowledge that this is George Harrison coming into his own as a songwriter and as a personality in the Beatles, being able to bring in strong material that could elbow them out of the way and get his stuff on. Eleanor Rigby, which is McCartney, and I'm Only Sleeping, which is Lennon. So the first 3 tracks are all by the three different Beatles. I think that's important to say that. I think that they all have their own elements, and they help to shine a light into the different personalities of those 3 people. And I think that's really interesting in a way that hadn't been done before. I think that the pop mentality of the early stuff is kind of being slowly pushed out. The rhythmic structures are completely different from Mersey Beat, the early pop Mersey Beat stuff. There's more of a, sort of, there's some almost punk elements and almost prog elements in in some of this stuff that they hadn't been before. To kind of, you can see there's some elements of both of those. I know they're later, but there's a huge variation in styles. So, the experimentation, it's the first album where they are not on tour and they're in a studio creating, and it's that flowering really of that that part of the Beatles where the studio thing means that they can investigate, they can have, horns, and they can have strings, and they can have all these other things that, had been around a bit, but they really started to, integrate them into what they did in their creative process on this record. So I think Revolver is an immensely groundbreaking record for, some of those reasons. I think they were hugely competitive. They wanted to be the biggest, they wanted to be the best, the most successful, band. Absolutely, well, they were, and they wanted to push the boundaries of creativity, and that, and this enabled. This is the first, I think. I think Rubber Soul is, the bridge, but this is the first time where they really pushed the boat out and really sat down in the studio and did that. So yes, that's kind of my 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 little background piece. Apologies for that.
No, no problem. And yeah, the big winner for me on this, ladies and gentlemen, and there's two things here. There's two things on the Spotify version. If you go and have a look on the Spotify version, it's got all the songs included on the original album, but it has Paperback Writer and Rain.
And Rain, yeah.
And I listened to that a dozen times over the last 3 or 4 days, and it just made so much sense when you put Paperback Writer and Rain on this album, when you listen to it as an experience. But the big winner for me, Simon, the big winner for me on this musically is Ringo's Star. What you can hear on this remix now, on every single song, my gosh, it's spooky what you can hear him do now that you couldn't quite hear before, on the previous albums.
Yeah, I think, yes, that's one of many interesting things, isn't it? I think that having the technology, and this leads nicely into it, I think, having the technology that developed by Peter Jackson for the Get Back movie, that enables you to separate out voices, instruments, and all that stuff. This demix technology, they call it, that was developed by them, and then further developed in conjunction with Abbey Road Studios, where they were able to, extract and have separate tracks for the bass, the drums, has made that process, possible, really, isn't it? Because clearly when they recorded them, the bass and the drums and probably the rhythm guitar were all on one track. It was all on one track, and because you only had 4 tracks, by the way, kids, 4 tracks. So you had to decide what you were going to put on each track, and multiple instruments on each track, and before now, it's never been possible to separate out things like, they managed to separate the kick drum and the bass drum into individual tracks. So not only just the bass and the drums, so that, as you say, Andrew, you can hear, more of what Ringo's. And what I was saying earlier about, that clearly that is about, that stuff is about the Ringo thing. It's not Merseybeat anymore. It's not that straight kind of forward. There's lots more kind of, different, and and the drumming progresses like the rest of the band. And but you haven't really noticed it before. I think people have noticed it before, to be honest, but I think that that it's it has made the Giles Martin's ability to remix things and just readjust things. I think really that's made it a really important step forward, the technology. I think the other interesting I'd say about it is how the way that he's applied it. He hasn't gone mad with it. And I don't know about you, Andrew, but I I spent a lot of time. Sorry, a bit chesty this morning. I spent quite a lot of time listening to the previous version, the 2009, 2015, and these, and going back and forth between the two. So in effect, the old mix is where the instruments are separated out into individual tracks, and then this one, and that's been a fascinating experience to to compare and contrast the two things. I think the previous version is like remastered, so they cleaned it up, cleaned up the mastering bit, but they didn't remix it because they didn't have this technology to be able to do it. I think that there's all sorts of things in here that that we can get into, but I think the overall sound of it has been, as I said, the overriding thing I take from it, and what I say about it, is that how clever Giles Martin has been in doing this. I don't, he hasn't just gone nuts and kind of, turned Ringo Starr into an 80s drum sound or anything like that. I think he's kept he's re-EQ'd things quite subtly and, moved things around in the mix and things like that. So but actually, he hasn't messed around too much, too drastically with the sounds of the instruments and things. Clearly there's a difference, but it's not huge in my books. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm a fan of it. I've been a fan of everything that he's done with the remixing because we've got the originals and we've got the 2011 remasters to go to, and we've got these ones here. So if anything, it's going to cause debate and discussion amongst Beatles fans as to which version is better. I certainly appreciate it. There's the rock professor's telling you about some of the instruments as well. You can also hear clearly the differences now in the background vocals between the band members and the songs. So it's remarkable. The first time I heard it, it was remarkable because, like most of us, we're familiar with this album. We've probably listened to this album thousands of times. Yeah, over the years, and to go back and hear this, it was like, wow, there were some sonic differences, and just hearing that in the voices, Simon. Again, I don't know what he's done, whether he's pushed them to the side. I'm going to go back and watch, because I was mindful, ladies and gentlemen, I haven't watched any other videos attached to this album, and I know that there's a lot of people out there talking about this album on YouTube, and that's great. We love that, but I've purposely, Simon, kept away from it, and I haven't read anything until we've done this show. So I'll go back over the next week and read and see what other people have to say. I don't know what he's done specifically with the vocals and with the drums, except for I know what the rock professor has said, about the guy that was involved in Weta Studios with Peter Jackson and that technology. But whether he's pushed the vocals forward, Simon, or cleaned them up, or put them on the left hand or the right hand frequency, I don't know. But jeepers, it's remarkable. Remarkable.
I think if you go and listen to the previous versions, which I did, I spent a lot of time going back and forth between the two to see what the differences were. And on the previous versions, you get the vocals in the left hand, pretty much in the left hand speaker. I think that's right. It doesn't matter. One of the speakers, and you get it. So you've got that kind of the stereo separation is you're either in one speaker or the other. Yeah,
correct.
Now, what he's done on these is he's brought, so the main vocal will be in the middle, and he will have panned the backing vocals so they're like either side of it.
Yep.
So, and then clearly you didn't have that technology in, when they recorded it, and when they've remastered them, they haven't done any of this stuff. So in effect, what you've got is, it's not even necessarily great a separation, but it is in way, because he's able to then have that panoramic stereo view across the whole spectrum. He can then, you've got a more of a 3D sound because you're not either in one speaker or the other. He's clearly able to, he doesn't have to make a decision, and we've talked about this a bit before. You don't make it what's going to be louder than something else, because in the old tape days, something had to be louder than something else. If you wanted loud guitars, the drums had to be quieter. because that's how those things worked. And clearly you don't have to do that anymore. So I think what he's done, and I think he's done it brilliantly. And I think, I listened to it on my stereo and in the car, and it sounds amazing because it's not that separated thing. The sound is more modern, if you like, if I dare use that phrase. He's modernized it, but without, you can clearly hear that it's the same songs with the same arrangements and all of that. It's not, he's managed to not turn them into something else. He's turned, they're still the same songs. They're still, magically. And somehow, as I say, because you've got that whole spectrum, you can position the instruments here and there, and the voices and things like that. It's just that thing about having the vocals in the middle rather than in one speaker it makes a really big difference to your listening experience. As I say, modernizes the listening experience, but without taking away the magic.
Awesome.
And you can't, you listen to those songs and I cannot, get over just how brilliant they are. The melodies, the songwriting is just amazing. The melodies, the beauty of those, remember, kids, singing all live. None of you creating backing tracks and stuff. No, this is all live without Melodyne and all that stuff, and they sound absolutely brilliant. McCartney is a backing singer second to none. All those second vocals, these high stuff that he does and things, it's just the three voices blend together. Just amazing. I've loved it, and I've loved the remix. I think, and I think that, as I say, that integration brings it together and makes it sound fantastic.
Awesome. If you guys are watching on a replay, let us know in the comments what you think of the latest remixes and remastering techniques. I understand there's going to be some debate and discussion about it, just like the other previous releases. So let us know what you think. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the show where we have to say, here we go. It's clickbait time. This gentleman here is away performing, but he still makes a presence here on the show. He is sponsoring the next segment of the show, Simon the Rock Professor, which is Show and Tell.
Show and Tell.
Here he is. So what we've got, folks, is we've just gone through and we've just picked. Just bear with me. So, obviously, there's the iconic album cover. Thoughts on that, Simon?
Klaus Vormann. Well, it's really interesting, is it? That it's. I described it earlier. That thing about steady now, Holly. That in a world where we're going into color, this is black and white. And in a sense, all the previous Beatles covers have been color, and this is a black and white one, as a kind of contrast to whatever else is going on when that when color has arrived and is being used all over the place, and and yet they do a black and white cover for this,
and black and white on the inside.
Yes, black and white photos is more then, but yes, but
black and white on the back.
Black and white on the back, you see. I can point out the obvious.
That's the guy that's responsible. I know who he is. I'm sure the Rock Professor knows who he is. Let's see if people in the chat know who this guy is holding the album cover. We don't do trivia on this show much, do we, Simon? But
well, we don't do trivia, and I mentioned his name just now. So.
Yeah, there he is. There, that's the young guy that's responsible for this wonderful album cover.
Holly went to sleep in that bit. She says she's got no clue.
He's a German guy. He's a German guy, Klaus Vormann.
Klaus Vormann, yes. Played with Lennon, didn't he? Played bass with Lennon later.
Yeah.
Amongst others. Mervyn Kloppmeister.
So what I've done, ladies and gentlemen, I've gone through and I've picked some picks from this era, which are really really important. So a lot of you, if you're Beatles fans, will be familiar with the 2 videos that the Beatles did there at Chiselwick House for paperback.
Chiselhurst.
Chiselhurst House, and Rain as well. So you can see there that they're playing some really, really important instruments. Obviously, Paul's there with his Hofner bass. But what's interesting there is you see George is playing an SG as opposed to a Casino that he was going to be a little bit more familiar with around that time. And obviously you can see there John Lennon is loving that Casino, Simon.
An early version of wireless technology there, clearly.
Yeah. So that's just a bit of art pop.
Pop art, yeah, lovely. Cool.
A pick there from, now this is available on the internet, ladies and gentlemen. There's a colorized version of the Circus gig in Germany. Go and check it out if you haven't seen it. It's remarkable. It's remarkable footage. And what's really interesting, if you have a look at it, all the people behind the back there, they're all cops. All these feds are all standing there with their white shirts, standing there watching the Beatles. It's remarkable, Simon. And then a couple of years later, there's not a cop to be seen on stage at rock and roll gigs.
Yeah, how funny, yeah. How subversive and revolutionary. You need to send dozens of cops along to check it out.
So that's from the Sessions Rock Professor, George and John.
So you're singing together into one mic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And
the proper way of doing it.
In the studio. So you'll notice here Paul McCartney's playing his Casino. He was the first guy to get the Casino in the Beatles, and the other guys got them. And having a Casino, you can understand why they like them, because Simon, you can get them on high volumes and they naturally feed back, and they've got a great little crunch that they would have liked at that time because they didn't have a lot of effects.
No, we should point that out. Not a lot of effects, just guitars straight into amps, pretty much. It's McCartney's he's playing a right-handed one upside down as well.
But his strings are strung normally. He's not playing it like
he's not to Hendrix, not doing a Hendrix and playing it upside down kind of thing. So, yeah, I did wonder. No.
So whether he's actually there in that pick doing the guitar solo for Taxman, we don't know, but I'd like to think so. Simon.
Why not? Why not? Let's perpetuate a myth for a bit of fun.
So that was a single that was released. So Yellow Submarine and Eleanor Rigby released as side A and side B of a single with the dinky metal submarine, Yellow Submarine, Simon.
Worth a pound or two. I think John ZD says Hendrix didn't play upside down. His guitars were restrung left-handed. I think in a many ways, but I'm sure he could play upside down. I'm sure there is. I've seen pictures of him where clearly the strings are upside down and he can still play it.
Well, he's jamming with the Stones backstage in 69. He's playing.
69. He's doing some.
So he could play both ways.
Yeah, nobody likes a smart ass, do they? That's extraordinary.
So another great pick. And this apparently is taken from the studio, and you've got Mr. Jagger there hanging out with them.
Come to check them out, see what they're doing.
Well, they were good friends, weren't they?
Yeah.
Another pic of John Lennon with his casino. Gosh, he's cool. Simon, that's taken from the studio. That's Sir Paul McCartney in the studio.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
That's George in the studio from the same session, apparently. And second to last, we have, there he is there, Ringo Starr in the studio as well, doing what Ringo does.
Of course, yeah.
And we have these guys here. These guys are the unofficial sponsors of the end of the show and tell segment, Keith and Pumpkin Cake.
Keith, is everything all right at home? That's what my kids would say to me if I dressed up like that. Is everything all right at home, Dad? Is it? Marvelous.
Yeah. John's right. Yeah, Doyle. Yeah, they play like a right-hander, but hold on. Let's get this right for anybody that doesn't know what's going on here. So see this guitar here. It's strung for a right-hander. So what these guys do is they play with the bottom E like that. So they're playing it like this, if that makes sense.
What? So there's a lobotomies at the bottom.
Yes.
And the top is at the top. Yeah. Now I'm sure I've seen Hendrix play like guitars like that. I'm sure I've seen footage of him. Not all the time, because it's easier to play when they're the right way.
He was a genius. He could play it both ways. But
yeah.
But there's footage of him, photos of him with Mick Taylor's SG backstage, and he's playing apparently
upside down. Yeah, I'm sure where he's pulling down. You pull down on the top E string, don't you? It's fantastic. Yeah. I find it amazing. But yes, so great pictures of there, and I think it's one of the most important things, isn't it, that we know that how documented the Beatles have been, the first great documented band, really. From the 60s. There's as we've seen with Get Back, there's film, there's loads of pictures, and there's detail about all of that stuff, isn't it? It's it's amazing.
Absolutely. Rock Professor, it's been a privilege hanging out with you. We weren't too cheeky to Brad, were we? So he's going to come back. So at least I'm
furious.
We've got some really, really cool shows lined up on the channels, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Saturday, the Rock Professor and I are going to do a Tuck Smith and the Restless Hearts show. We're going to come here. On Sunday, New Zealand time, I've got John Conklin and Jim V taking over the 5150 Van Halen show. We're going to talk about the EVH convention, which is going to be the next day at Greenwich Village. Greenwich.
Yes, Greenwich Music, isn't it?
Greenwich Music.
Yeah.
If you guys don't know this, we are the official YouTube channel for EVH Con. So we take that very seriously, and it was a nice honour to get that title. So what we're going to be doing on the Monday New Zealand time, which is Sunday at EVH Con, we're going to be streaming the whole show. So we'll let you know how we're going to do that when you guys watch us next week with Jim and V. We're going to have something set up, and we're just going to stream the whole show so people can jump on. Simon Hosford is going to be a co-host here on the Monday as well.
Excellent. Brilliant. Good to see him back.
So, yeah. So we're going to have him on board as well, and we're going to stream for. I think the con goes from 1 to 5 o'clock. So that's 4 hours, Simon. The convention.
Right.
So we'll be doing that, and also the following week we've got it was Brad's pick, Black Sabbath's Heaven and Hell, Simon.
That's right. Oh, did you mention we're doing a Led Zeppelin 2 next week?
No, I did not. And no. So we're doing Led Zeppelin. What are we doing first? We're doing Led Zeppelin 2.
We're doing Led Zeppelin 2 next Sunday. Yeah. So this show next Sunday will be ranking the tracks on Led Zeppelin 2.
And I can't believe we haven't done that.
We haven't done 3 really either.
No.
We did 3. We did 3 with the mighty Alan Garber, but we talked about it a lot. But we've not actually done a me, you, and Brad rank the tracks.
No, we didn't. No, we just talked about it. We just did the gear with Alan Garber. That's all. You know, we didn't do the ranking. Yeah.
No. So who said we were running out of albums?
So that's right. So we've got a Zoso show coming up. So it's been a while since we've done a Zoso show. So
cool. Next week, next Sunday.
We're always excited when we do Zoso shows because they always generate some traction for the channel. So some of those Facebook groups, Simon, that have one's got 120,000 members.
Wow. If we get a few of those people to subscribe, we're doing well.
It's just phenomenal. There's another one that's got 140. It's just like you go, wow. Our Facebook group that's attached to our channel here has got 11,500, Simon. So we're,
Yeah. We're doing all right. Yeah. No complaints. Promise.
No,
really well.
but I think that was the success, though. That's one of the successes, though, that we had with our channel, because we managed to get some people from those Facebook groups to subscribe. So that worked well for us, didn't it?
Oh, indeed, absolutely, yeah. It's fantastic. So thanks to everyone who has subscribed. It's really nice of you to support our little channel as we go along. Fantastic. Yeah. Morning, Hugh. Hugh Corbell's just popped in. So good morning to you, Hugh. Hope you're good.
Hi, Hugh.
Good. Nice to see you. Yeah. So that's our plans for the next couple of weeks. Quite a lot going on, which is really cool. Yeah, really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I'm just go and check out Revolver Special Edition. It's fantastic, and we'll remind you how brilliant the Beatles are.
Yeah. I'm just going to play this little video. This was a nice little shout out that we had from the show earlier, guys. So we're just going to play this before the Rock Professor is going to say goodbye to you all, and we do the end video. So I promised him that we would do this. Ricky Dover Jr., thank you, brother, for hanging out with us. Thank you for being a friend of the channel. And Simon and I and Brad look forward to promoting any and upcoming projects you have in the future. So, thank you for giving us that opportunity to do that for you. We take that honor with humbleness and with a bit of pride, Simon, don't we?
Absolutely, it's great. It's great to support, the rock and roll stuff that we like as well, which is cool. Very cool.
You guys are awesome. Thank you, Ricky. I'm going to give you the last word, I promise, and then we're going to end the show.
Cool. Thank you, Andrew, so much for having me. 5150 show. Rock and roll. Please check it out. Tuck Smith and the Restless Hearts. Ricky Dover Jr. and all things social media. You know where to find me. Thank you so much. Awesome. Rock and roll.
Awesome. Lovely. What a nice dude.
Look at that. Yeah. It's really good. Yeah. Fantastic. Where do you find these people, Dr. Walton? Very good. I'm very impressed. Your research.
Can I tell you something? Can I tell you something a little bit?
Are we on? No one's listening. You research.
Sometimes people reach out to us too.
Really?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Look at that. People reaching out to us.
Yeah. So,
I didn't think anyone noticed.
But we're always a little bit modest here.
I didn't think anyone noticed. Oh dear. Fantastic. So shall I say goodbye to the peeps? Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to Keith Campbell, as ever, Holly Lewis, Hugh Caldwell, John ZD351. Great stuff, John, as always. Fantastic. It's come when you like, you. No. Ellen, of course, Ellen. Thank you, Ellen, for joining. Teresa, of course, from Brazil. Hope you're good, Teresa. Thanks for joining. Johnny Heartbreaker. Thanks, Johnny. Holly, Keith, Ellen. I think there's probably Hugh Hugh Caldwell. Who else do we have further up the line? Maybe not anything. I may have got everybody. I think possibly. Gret Zeppelin. Thank you, Gret. Good to see you. Thanks everyone for all your support in all our little shows and what we're doing. It's fantastic. I think that's everybody who made a comment. I just got the top just to see if I've missed anyone. Keith, I think so. John, yeah. I think that's everybody. Oh, Nelson, of course. Nelson Rodriguez, who's at the top. So thanks, Nelson. So thank you, everybody. It's been fantastic to see you again. And we'll be back next week for more of this nonsense.
Rock Professor, and again, I got to say this: we're just fans. The Rock Professor and I, and Brad, and everybody in the chat here. We're always humbled that you guys are hanging out with us. But you know, I'm not a Beatles expert, nor's the Rock Professor. We're just guys hanging out, talking about stuff, aren't we, Simon? That's it.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun to talk about it and have some ideas about things and stuff. And nobody more enjoyable to talk about than the Beatles. It's fantastic stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
Right. Let's go. See you later, guys. Take care. Have a good week. See you on Saturday.
Yeah. And because you guys didn't get Brad, here he is. He's going to play us out. Brad Cook.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brad Cook.